Hi, my name's Steve Appel, and as you can see, I'm blindfolded. This week on Work Comp Matters, we're doing the Bird Box Show, talking about Donald Trump, Gavin Newsom, the LA school board strike, and of course, strippers in the Bay Area. All this plus news of the week with Mike and Robert on Work Comp Matters. Now here's the show.
Stand by SOT1.
Standing.
10 seconds. Ready, rollin'. Ready, SOT1.
Ready.
In 4, 3, 2, 1. Roll in.
From the round table at legendary Uncle Studios in beautiful Southern California, welcome to another edition of Work Comp Matters, the central location for you employees, you employers, and of course you independent contractors. My name is Steve Appel, and I'll be your host for the next hour with some talk, news, and hopefully some answers about Work Comp Matters. Thanks for being part of the show, and if you can break away from your Work Comp Matters, feel free to give us a call and clue us in with your questions, comments, and or concerns. The phone number worldwide, 818-357-4120. You can send me an email to wcexaminer@aol.com. You can be old school and send me a fax, 818-475-1437. With me in studio, my right-hand man, Mike Zyma, my protege, attorney Robert Ozeron. Scott Walton of Uncle Studio is engineering the show, working out the technical difficulties. Back in Munich, Germany, is 45-year retired applicant and defense attorney John Scalia. And back at WorkComp Central, making sure the whole damn thing goes right, is Kristen Chavez. Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of WorkComp Matters. And, of course, yes, this is going to be special. The title of the show is Bird Box. Now, before we get to why we're titling it Bird Box, if you haven't guessed already, I want to tell you that we have a new agreement. This is not a handshake agreement. This is actually a telephone agreement with WorkComp Central, but we'll get to that in a bit. We've got news of the day, including a couple of WorkComp Central articles that we couldn't possibly read word for word, so I pared them down because they're meant for reading, and then we're going to talk about that. But we've also got Governor California Gavin Newsom, we've got President Donald Trump, and we've got everything else that, in my opinion, matters to California employers, employees, and of course, as always, we have not forgotten about you independent contractors. We're brought to you by A1 Law. If you want the #1 computer management system used by more workers' compensation attorneys than any other system in the damn Kuiper Belt, you give me a call, 818-357-4120 for your no strings attached money-back guarantee, $1 a day, A1 Law. And if you want those hard-to-get, sold-out, yes, even front-row concert, sports, or theater tickets, give our buddy Brian a call, Santa Monica Tickets, 310-395-8587. And of course, as always, and we can't thank them enough, we are sponsored by WorkCompCentral.com. Any type of workers' compensation information you need, either in the state of California or around the nation, give them a call. It's WorkCompCentral.com will get you all the information. They're offering a 7-day free trial. You can have complete, unfettered access to the site, and also I saw an ad. I think their monthly fee now is down to like $34 and change or something like that. It's less than $1 a day. They probably think they're competing with A1 Law or something like that, but give them a call at WorkCompCentral.com. Well, of course, I decided to title the show tonight Bird Box. As some of you may know, September of 2017, we did a show called Blind Ambition / Greed, and for the heck of it, tongue in cheek, I wore a blindfold during the entire show. Well, my assistant at work, my assistant office manager, told me that she saw Bird Box and she thought it was wonderful. And then I've been reading things in the news about Bird Box. I have not seen it yet. I will not give you any spoilers, but of course the premise is that Sandra Bullock and her family go on a long nationwide journey or whatnot, blindfolded, because they know they will die or be killed or whatever if they can see. So I decided it was time to do another show blindfolded. And I am, of course, tonight blindfolded.
Your gag is quite stylish.
Yes, thank you very much. And yes, I wrote the news earlier, but, I always write the news, and then Mike comes in and edits it, and Robert and Mike, and if Ted is here, and myself read it. Obviously, I will not be reading the news tonight as I am blindfolded, but I will do my best to comment. As part of the new agreement with WorkComp Central, and by the way, we entered into a new contract that's going to be good for the first quarter through the end of March. I have agreed, and I'm more than happy to take one or more stories from WorkComp Central and to edit them down to acceptable, what I consider to be acceptable broadcasting format, because if you have ever looked at the news on WorkComp Central, it says like 8-minute read, 13-minute read, 50-minute read. Obviously, we'd be reading forever, so we pared down the stories. So it's time for the first WorkComp Central news of the evening. He's my right-hand man. He's the chief of staff. He allows me to come and go as I please and keeps me in check and hopefully out of trouble at least 90% of the time. The doctor, Michael Zima.
Thank you. Governor Jerry Brown last Thursday appointed Christine Baker to fill the final vacancy on the Fraud Assessment Commission. Baker will be part of a 7-person team that is charged with allocating funding collected from employers to district attorneys throughout the state to investigate and prosecute workers' comp fraud. Ms. Baker abruptly left her position last March as director of the Department of Industrial Relations for undisclosed reasons.
And we reported on that in WorkComp Central. Mike, by the way, at the very top of that story, is there the actual title of the story and or the date it was done on WorkComp Central?
Baker to fill labor vacancy on Fraud Assessment Commission 1719.
So any of you that are listening to this, if you have a chance, go to your WorkComp Central News 17, January 7th, and you will be able to see the written story. But when that happened, we reported on it. And I specifically remember on WorkComp Matters, I said it was a slow day, and all of a sudden it comes like lightning out of the sky. It's a 102-mile-an-hour fastball down the plate, and we had the news story with Christine Baker as she abruptly resigned. Mike, please continue reading the story.
Both the San Francisco Chronicle and WorkComp Central reported the California State Auditor was scheduled to release an audit report on Baker's department. Baker then stepped down, and the DIR removed the notice from its website. A former DIR attorney last April said the auditor had been investigating a nepotism complaint relating to Baker's brother and daughter, who were both employed by the DIR. It appears the audit was never made public, and the auditor's office continues to refuse comment. I want to see that report, guys.
I want to see that audit, too, because, guys, what do we always say on WorkComp Matters?
Follow the money.
Follow the money.
Yes.
As I said before, and I'll say it again, if we get a hold of that audit or any new information coming up, we will bring it to you. Well, we have 2 more WorkComp Central news stories that we're going to talk about a little later. Right now, we've got the first WorkComp Matters story. He's my protege. He's a 6-year workers' compensation applicant attorney extraordinaire. With the first WorkComp Matters news story of the night, attorney Robert Ozeron.
The California Labor and Workforce Development Agency today announced that the Labor Commissioner's Office has secured $1.7 million in assets from the owners of Bay Area restaurant chain Mango Garden.
And I'm going to stop you right there. Now, this is not a fine. This is where they actually went ahead and seized the assets. This is the first time I've seen the Division of Industrial Relations actually seizing assets.
To satisfy a judgment, though.
Oh, absolutely. Robert, please continue.
This is in relation to 56 workers who were victims of wage theft. Seizure of the assets occurred after the owners fraudulently transferred the restaurant's ownership to avoid paying workers and wages owed. Prior to the investigation, the owners became aware that one or more of the workers were intending to file wage claims. They then dissolved 2 of their 3 corporate entities, created new entities, and listed different management to unsuccessfully avoid liability.
Talk about follow the money.
And I was going to say, Robert, before you finish the story, because the story here mentions fraud, could there be potential criminal charges coming on this?
It looks like that. I mean, it says here the owners fraudulently transferred the restaurant's ownership, and there are potential criminal penalties for that, I believe.
Apparently, Mango Garden is a pretty popular restaurant up there. It's franchised, but there's a lot of them. Apparently, I Googled it a bit
But
today.
it's also wage theft. I mean, if they're intending to commit a crime, arguably there's one right there, right? So we'll see. Just because the California Labor and Workforce Development Agency, which looks like they're doing good work and actually going out and securing assets, I don't know how much they're working with potential district or city attorney.
And then is there a remainder of the story?
No, that's the end of the story. You wrote it.
I can't remember everything. Although Mike has told you, I will talk about something about my eyesight. Anybody that knows me knows, even without the blindfold, I have terrible eyesight. But one of the really things that I have that in my mind are superior, except when you tell me your name and I can't remember it 5 minutes later, or if you talk to me about facts or stories or everything, I like to think I have a superior memory. And as you guys are reading the stories, it's coming back to me writing them earlier, but it's a little difficult for me to tell when the story is finished. I always think there might be a little extra because I read a little extra and then I had to edit it, but there you go.
Well, that's the end of the story for now. I mean, that's not the end of the story. That's just the end of the news article.
Right.
We'll see what happens with potential criminal and what happens with the wages.
Wow.
Mike, what's next?
Gen X Services has acquired Excel Managed Care and Disability Services, a provider of occupational medicine, medical case management, utilization review, and return-to-work services for the workers' compensation disability markets. Excel will continue to be led by President Brenda Smith and Vice President Steve Smeton. Gen X, already the largest case management company in the U.S., increases its number of case managers to more than 1,600.
You know, speaking of case managers, MPNs, utilization reviews, someone asked me if now that Gavin Newsom is our governor, if MPN and or utilization review is going to be ending and or changing. And I had someone else on Facebook ask me, so Steve, you're doing a show on Bird Box. Is that going to be on your apocalyptic version of work comp? So I said, no, it's not quite that, but I would like to throw it out to the table. What do you think about utilization review and MPN with Gavin Newsom now as the governor? Is it going to change?
Well, if it goes away, it'd certainly make it a lot easier on applicants' practice, I can tell you that.
Well, yeah, if it would, but no, I don't think it's going to change. I mean, Gavin Newsom's a disciple of Jerry Brown, so I don't see why there would be any change at all. In fact, there's probably going to be a doubling down of more of the same, right? So the policies in San Francisco in regards to the homeless and needles and things like that, apparently they're going to be statewide now. We can only extrapolate for assumptions purposes, but we'll see, right? But I don't see the changes going the other direction. No.
You know, just a general question. We kind of spoke about it before. When I look at Newsom, all I see are incredible tax increases. Am I crazy?
No, I think that's pretty accurate.
I try not to look directly at him.
In fact, we've got another story. I got that, Robert. Remember, I can't see your face, so I can only hear you.
Oh, yeah, you're blindfolded, so you know what? That's the best way to do this one.
There you go. I know we have another story on Gavin Newsom. Can one of you read
it right here?
The follow-up on Gavin Newsom? Go ahead.
Following his inauguration speech Monday, California Governor Gavin Newsom announced a number of health care proposals, including plans to improve premium subsidies in covered California, expand health care coverage for some undocumented adults, and pave the way for single-payer system. Consumer groups and universal health care advocates have applauded the new governor's plans, but experts warn most of these steps require budget allocations, legislative backing, and in some cases federal approval that's unlikely to take shape.
He wants to give free health care to all citizens and or non-citizens, whether you're living in California or just coming to California. If you live in North Dakota and come to California for a weekend and hurt yourself, he wants you to have free health care. I'm not necessarily exaggerating.
Well, it's a tough call, right? I mean, in an ideal world, there'd be health care for everybody, and I understand that. But if you don't have that everywhere and you only have it at some place, you're going to bankrupt that one place.
And it's a magnet.
Well,
Yeah,
no, that's not
exactly.
necessarily true. I mean, that is essentially socialized medicine.
Of course
I mean,
there
they had.
That's where he's going.
But but if everyone can come here even on a trip and get health care, they're just going to show up, get a surgery. First of all, our lines are going to be enormous. Second, what doctors would actually take this type of insurance, right? Just because they demand it doesn't mean the doctors will have to take it. There'll probably be certain centers where the lines are, 30 days long. Socialized medicine is pretty much death panels at the end. Isn't that right? Isn't that how it always ends eventually?
I don't know. John
that's
Scalia.
a really cynical way of looking
John
at it.
Scalia is in Germany. He loves it. They have it in France. They love it. But then again, isn't everybody paying about 50%?
Don't they
in
have
taxes?
death panels over there? Death panels, which is
I
a
believe
group,
so.
of a group of bureaucrats sit around a table and go, well, this person's old and he's high on that list for kidney. He's been waiting a long time, but screw him. That denied. Next, right? And you're dead. You got nowhere to go. And they do that to little kids too in England, right? You can't leave for treatment, apparently.
Well, there's a certain amount of that is necessary. A transplant potential recipient has got to be screened, and there's only so many organs. And if one guy's 95, you're going to give it to the 20-year-old.
Yeah, and you know how it is in Europe. It's all who you know and who you've paid.
I've heard.
Right? And a lot of good people just end up getting denied because they're just working Joes who need a transplant. And you don't know the right person. You're good as dead.
Wonder how it works where John is.
Oh, it's, everything for the human condition seems to work the same way everywhere. So you can only imagine. As far as I hear socialized medicine, everyone likes the idea that healthcare for all, right? You feel that that's important. That said, it's one step towards socialism, and which is really just diet communism. And
well, that's where Newsom's going.
Well, of course. And it seems that the country, though, and generally is going the opposite direction with Trump. So
the middle of the country.
Well, a
blue
good
and red
swath.
again.
Yeah, a good swath of the country. But a lot of people in blue states are that way as well. I mean,
well, we'll see how the shutdown changes things, if at all.
Yeah, we're going to do that story next, actually.
And we have the shutdown and some Trump stories coming up in just a moment. My name is Steve Appel. I'm blindfolded on this edition of Bird Box. You're listening to Work Comp Matters. We're brought to you by A1 Law, the #1 computer management system used by more workers' compensation attorneys than any other system in the damn Kuiper Belt. Give me a call at 818-357-4120 for your no-strings-attached money-back guarantee, $1 a day. A1 Law. And if you want those hard-to-get, sold-out, yes, even front row, concert, sports, theater tickets, give our buddy Brian a call at Santa Monica Tickets, 310-395-8587. And for all your workers' compensation needs, be it in California or around the United States, WorkCompCentral.com. That's WorkCompCentral.com. Take advantage of their 7-day free trial, or you can pick up a monthly subscription. I think it's right around $1 a day. We've got some Trump news. Go for it.
President Donald Trump took to the airwaves Wednesday night to garner support for his border wall and shutting down the government until the wall is funded.
Oh, my God. Was he sniffing like there was no tomorrow? And clearly, and again, I don't know if this is the case of Richard Nixon debating John Kennedy, but he looked horrible just staring right at that prompter. But he was sniffing. Sniffing was going out of style.
I told you, we talked about this, and I didn't notice the sniffing, but then when he was doing it at that in the first debate, I didn't notice it until somebody told me about it. And then I could notice it. Did you notice that sniffing?
I didn't notice the sniffing as much as I did notice his demeanor during the speech. Mm-hmm. And it was really that he was just trying to be, it was off because he was trying to restrain his anger. is what it looked like.
Well,
It
I
looked
thought
like he was trying to be as moderate and as best, how should I say this? He wanted to be as persuasive as possible, and that's not his usual tone.
Well, I think
right?
he really
He was
wanted
trying to be moderate in
He
his
really
speech.
wanted to ad lib, and he was instructed and/or decided to stick
He did
to
a little
the
bit.
script.
And he definitely was sticking to the script,
Yep.
correct, boss? And
No
that's why he
question.
felt so tight that he wanted
That's
to just
exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah, he felt super tight, like he just had to deliver this, and he wants to be persuasive, but he's not sure how to be persuasive delivering other people's words.
Well, write your own speech then, pal.
But he's not persuasive. He's angry. I mean, you can see how he was with. I mean, if you were dealing with Pelosi and Schumer, I mean,
Oh, we're going to get to that in a moment.
there's no negotiating with them,
No,
right?
we're going to
It's
get
not
to
going to
Pelosi
matter.
and Schumer
They
in
say
a
the
moment.
same at Trump, though.
No, I mean,
They do. They say the same at Trump.
Mike, finish the story.
Okay. The shutdown, now at 19 days, beginning on December 22nd, is the 19th since the mid-70s, although most have been brief. This one now ranks as the second longest, and Trump saying it could continue for months or years, even as he said he hoped it was resolved within days. So I understand that there was a meeting today. Trump walked into the meeting, Pelosi and Schumer, and he says directly, "Are you going to accept the wall?" She says no, and he turned around and walked out. I think that's great.
Talking about Pelosi and Schumer, they did the Democratic response, and I called up Mike during it, and I said, "Who does this look like? I couldn't figure it out. Who does this look like?" And then I woke up this morning and figured out it looks like the famous picture of the farmer with the hay fork and his wife,
I could see that.
which apparently is all over the internet now. They stole my idea, but that's okay. Let me say this, folks. I have said it on this show many times before. I don't care if you're Donald Trump, if you're Schumer, if you're Pelosi, if you're Gavin Newsom, Jerry Brown, whoever. There is no excuse, no reason whatsoever for shutting down the government. And if you shut down the government, you do not deserve to be paid. Period. End of story. Black and white, no gray. Now, Trump doesn't take a salary anyways. Also, Trump does not control the purse strings. It's Congress. And I don't think that anybody who is a senator or is a U.S. House of Representative should be paid during a government shutdown.
I agree.
Yeah, I agree. They shouldn't be paid. That'd be great, but it's not like it's going to put any pressure on these people.
Well, Trump has been saying that he's going to make an executive decision to involve the military. There'd be a lot of Seabees.
You'd
That's
have
what
to
they call them,
declare an
Seabees.
emergency.
He would do that. They've been building up the emergency idea for about 72 hours or whatever.
And then you're going to have an emergency United States Supreme Court case to determine whether or not Trump can control the purse strings if he declares an emergency.
But
See,
he's talking about using existing funding.
What do you
and
guys think
rechanneling it.
about the content of his speech?
Direct and to the point.
No, I'm talking about not the content of what he was saying. That it costs $500 billion a year, and this is only $25 billion over 5 years. He wants whatever it is.
He's hyperbolic. He always is hyperbolic, and that's what he does. I never listen to him when there's statistics being mentioned.
I've said it on the show
Myself.
before. I don't believe a thing out of his mouth until I verify it. But I thought the best thing that he said, Robert, the best content in his speech, whoever wrote it should give him a raise, was when he talked about movie stars, entertainment people who have walls around their house. It's not to keep the bad people out. It's to keep the loved ones safe. And I thought that was the best
really
part
good,
of his
yeah.
speech.
That was a great metaphor.
That was a good move. Yeah, you know he didn't write that one.
Right, and that's why I said
But
whoever
he
did,
liked
give
it.
him a raise.
But, I mean, border security is an issue that's been around for a long time. Why would the Democrats be so adamant in opposition?
Well, remember, they were willing to give him $25 billion as long as he gave up DACA. Then he said he wouldn't give up DACA.
Okay, not counting any perhaps unreasonable exchanges, because I don't know the specifics of that deal that was discussed. Just now, why not? Why not just on its own secure the border? Right? You know how many women are assaulted going up? It's a magnet. How many drugs are poured in? Gang members. What's wrong with having a secure border?
They say
I
they
don't
can do it
understand
other
that.
ways. Technology, BS.
Okay, but currently, do you guys generally setting aside the the numbers Trump alleged, right, in his in his speech, which is like a 10-to-1 ratio, right? The cost of the wall to the savings per year, nonetheless, right? Do you believe generally that the cost of the wall would be offset by the savings in the society?
Yes.
Generally.
Yes, greatly so.
Okay, so generally it's a good project. It's in the black or in the green, whatever.
In my view.
Okay, it's not in the red project. Boss, what do you say, Mr. Appel?
Call me Steve, my boy. I believe in border security. I believe that this is the last promise that candidate Trump made that President Trump is trying to complete.
It was the first promise he ran on, isn't it?
But it's the last one that he is still working on. I think he believes he was successful on the other promises he made.
Economy's good, right? It's a good time to strike for that big one.
I do not know about $25 billion. I do not know about 1.3 versus 1.7. I do not know about a cost analysis, but I am glad that we have the population and the government officials talking about strengthening our borders, and I think it is a necessary evil. As to how much we should spend, I don't know. Should we shut down the government for it? You guys already know how I feel about that.
Well, securing the borders would eliminate or greatly reduce human trafficking, right? Which is one of those.
I think so.
Which is one of those biggie crimes we're looking at across the world,
I
right?
agree.
That's one of those crimes against humanity, kind of the global issue. It could potentially reduce drugs. That's why I think potentially, because usually in economics where there's a demand, there's a supply. All right? It's not like you're giving drugs to people who necessarily don't want it already. I don't know. I don't know if that's true or not. I'm just thinking, will that really affect anything regarding the drug game, securing the southern border? If the people who are demanding their drugs want to just pour in from somewhere else, isn't that how drugs work?
Yeah, but if I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong, well, I was going to say that a lot of illegal aliens that are coming in are bringing in the drugs. I don't know if you took a poll and who's going to answer it, really, versus legitimate citizens of the United States.
Well, they're cartels, so they have mules.
Okay, but yeah, a lot of the drugs currently, the great majority flow in from the southern border, okay? Yep. You secure the southern border. You think that just stops drugs? Is that the conclusion, is my question.
It doesn't stop it, but it makes it more difficult to bring in.
So it just increases the street value of the remaining drugs, is what you're saying?
Unless you make all drugs legal, then it lowers the value.
Can it hurt, Robert?
Well, no, I'm not saying negative. I'm just saying I think the human trafficking is the biggest one, because that one you can't really go in from other you could. It's just much more difficult. They're putting a large number of people through. And a lot of these women get assaulted on the journey. And I think a lot of that is the point, too. It's psychological. If people know that we have the wall, maybe they won't try to come on up. And if that's the case, less women are trying, less women are being assaulted. So there's a huge psychological effect to this.
What I find one thing that's interesting is the Dems are now, in part of what they're saying that it's an old concept. They're forgetting that the Vatican is surrounded by a wall. There's a wall in Northern Ireland. There's
Israel.
A wall in Jerusalem.
Yep.
And they work.
The Great Wall of China.
There was a
Great Wall of China got breached often.
There was a wall in one city, Berlin, and there was two different lives on each side of the wall. Okay, so walls work. We know that. The question is it reasonable? Is it financially feasible? And I think you and I agree, Mike, that it probably is in the cost savings analysis.
Well, I just hope, bad guys don't get in there and take dough, and also that it's supervised correctly and put up correctly.
I just don't want Trump's name on the wall.
As contractors and such.
Oh, I see. I see. You mean like the $9,000 wrench and the $6,000 toilet seat?
Yes. With a $5 billion project, there's going to be a lot of people smelling around for that.
I bet you that stuff's not as real as you think. I bet you
it's more real than you think.
No, I'm
Maybe
sure that
it used to be.
I'm sure it's on the books, but I believe that there's probably some other government programs where they say here's $6,000 for a toilet, but really it's $900.
Robert, they budgeted
for the toilet, and the rest is going to some black budget.
They budgeted and spent $3 million for a swimming pool in Iraq that was never built. Okay.
So that's what I'm worried about.
They could be researching things that they can't write down officially. They can't even budget for. is what I'm saying. So they may be allocating funds.
Well, I
that
hope
way.
there's transparency in where the dough's going.
I sure agree. Scott, is it time for Scalia yet, or we still got some time left? All right, it's time for John Scalia. My name is Steve Appel. You're listening to Work Comp Matters. I'm blindfolded throughout the entire show. We're brought to you by A1 Law, Santa Monica Tickets, and, of course, WorkCompCentral.com. Well, he is a retired 45-year workers' compensation attorney who's now hanging out in socialist Munich, Germany. With his comment on being blindfolded, Mr. John Scalia.
Hi, this is John from Munich with the Work Comp International Report. This week, Steve has asked me to talk about blindfolds. Apparently, the new Sandra Bullock movie concerns a family who is kidnapped and blindfolded. Well, obviously, the point of a blindfold is to take away your sight. So I thought about having sight taken away, and of course, I reflected first on childhood, in which we play games and where we blindfold people. One of the most common games played is pin the tail on the donkey, where you put a blindfold on someone, give them a pin, send them in the direction of a poster of a donkey, and ask them to try to put the pin in the general vicinity of the donkey's rear. And the name of the game, pin the tail on the donkey. Another game is blind man's bluff, which is a game of tag, where you blindfold someone in a large space or open field, and you ask them to go try to find one of the other people in the group and go tag them. And again, it's done without their being able to see. So the point of the games are to emphasize the importance of vision, and as a corollary also to point out that you can do things without vision. So I thought back on my own personal experience with sight and vision. Fortunately for me, I am a sighted person, and I've been sighted all my life. But at one point, I had the problem known as shingles. Shingles is a neurological disorder that manifests itself in little pimples all over your body. You can get it if you've had chickenpox or measles as a kid, and it becomes activated. The most common distribution of the manifestation of shingles is around the chest and back, generally considered pretty painful. I had a rarer version of the disease. Mine attacked my face and my optic nerve, my eye. Yeah, my eye looked like something out of special effects. When shingles attacks your optic nerve, you can have vision loss. A couple of weeks into the disease, I in fact did experience partial vision loss in one eye. It was fairly severe. Now, you can't do anything about it. You just have to wait and see whether or not the vision returns. But what you learn, of course, is that you can still function. And even though, of course, this is not being totally blind, it's with a fairly substantial loss. Fortunately for me, after a week or two, my vision came back. The other experience I've had is when I was taking ski lessons. And at one point, the ski instructor said, okay, I want you to ski this part of the hill by closing your eyes and skiing. His point was, I want you to be able to feel the information transmitted from the ski to your brain and react accordingly. In other words, you don't really have to use your eyes. You don't have to see. You just have to feel, and you can get the information transmitted to you. So, what should we learn from all this? Well, I refer back to one of the proverbs that Jesus said, in which he said, don't cast out your neighbor, don't see the sty in your neighbor's eye when you can't see the log in your own. In other words, just because you can see doesn't mean you're seeing everything correctly. In fact, you may not be seeing everything correctly. There's a difference between vision and sight. Sight is what you can see. Vision is what you can dream. The most telling examples of vision are, to me, John F. Kennedy's speech about going to the moon and Martin Luther King's speech about having a dream. Kennedy gave his speech at Rice Stadium. Rice, for those of you who may not know, is a very elite academic institution in Texas. Their admission standards are like Stanford's, but it's a very small school. It has like 1,500 undergraduates, but it plays football on a big scale. Kennedy gave the address at Rice University Football Stadium, which seats 50,000 people. And during the speech, showing that he was in touch with American culture, Kennedy said, "We're going to the moon not because it is the easy thing, but because it is the opposite." And then he said, "Just like here at Rice, you play the University of Texas every year in football." Well, that was his point. A vision overcomes what you can see. The next thing, of course, was Martin Luther King's speech of I have a dream. Notice, it's not I have a sight or this is what I can see, but I have a dream. Dreams are when you are not seeing. They're when you're seeing only with your mind and your eyes are shut. And Martin Luther King's speech was one of the most powerful speeches in American history. He talked about dreaming about when people can be judged by the content of their achievements and of their brain and not the color of their skin. When everything is open to you based on what you envision, not based on what other people see about you. Thus, the importance of visions. Visions are far more important than sight. As a corollary, I would say it's important if we could find people like JFK or Martin Luther King again, who have visions. And visions are something separate from sight. Well, that's the Work Comp Report this week from Munich.
And John, thank you very much. It's time for a musical break, and then Scott might want to come back and debate Robert on the wall. But here's La Familia, Glenn Laughlin, Baby, You're a Rich Man. We'll see you back in a couple of minutes.
How does it feel to be one of the beautiful people? Now that you know who you are, what do you want to be? And have you traveled very far? Far as the eye can see. Baby, you're a rich man. Baby, you're a rich man too. You keep all your money in a big brown bag inside a zoo. What a thing to do. How does it feel to be one of the beautiful people? How often have you been there? Often enough to know. What did you see when you were there? Nothing that doesn't show. Baby, you're a rich man. Baby, you're a rich man too. You keep all your money in a big brown bag inside a zoo. What a thing to do.
Man, I'll tell you, off air, it's incredible. Now I'm going to invite Scott over. Come on over. I've really resisted talking about El Chapo on the show. We've never talked about El Chapo, but talk about someone who escapes through walls and tunnels and all that crap. Scott, you know I'm blindfolded. Are you anywhere near me? No. You chicken. You chickened out. Okay,
he's
fair.
coming. He's coming.
Oh, he is coming.
You got him.
I'm gonna give Scott my mic.
This wall is useless. Come on.
Okay, good. We're getting a contrarian
water
perspective.
In Flint, Michigan. We need more income to help the homeless. Not this useless wall that's going to be taking away resources from the areas that are
Isn't
needed.
the opposite true? Because we'll be saving theoretically on medical cost and welfare cost and other such things?
And I heard that, what was it, the NAACP or another black organization said that illegal immigration hurts black people the most. because they're taking jobs that potentially black people will get. They're receiving social services that often black people receive or should receive more attention to. So I've seen a lot of angry black people on the internet posts.
Well, Scott, you think that it's just not going to work,
Who's
right?
going to take all those jobs of picking the vegetables out
No,
in the
I'm
field?
definitely
Not you,
listen,
not me.
See,
We have
that's
workers.
that's
We have
different
workers.
story though. That's legal
What about
immigration.
the,
That's
the
legal
maids
economic
and all the
immigration.
people
I
that
don't know
that
how much of it is
do
legal.
Scott, you got to speak closer to your microphone.
You ever see that movie Day Without a Mexican?
Yeah,
where all the
we're not
Mexicans
kicking-
disappeared.
see,
there
that-
was no.
See, Scott, that's a very extremist point of view you're giving. It's a 0 or it's 100 or nothing type of view. No, you could have legal immigration. You could have border security. You could have the right number of jobs filled from across the border. Seasonal workers, migrant workers. You still have that. So,
Scott, why wouldn't the wall
it's
work?
not about that. Yeah, there's a reasonable
We'll
position
climb
between the
over,
two.
they'll dig under it. Let's put the money toward sonar and radar and just.
Well, that
being-
too.
Just. Make
That's
it,
all. That's an encompassing border security
yeah, the
package.
wall is useless. That's my opinion.
Well,
All right. Well, thank you
but
for
you-
your
but
opinion,
Scott
and
would
we
agree-
gave you the time for it. You can go back over to the board now.
No, but you would all agree around the table here that it works in Israel, for example. The wall
does.
right? It's
Germany because they had machine guns, and if you tried to
Well,
hop
maybe-
the wall, you get killed.
Well,
instead
it
of-
also works at the Vatican. I'm sure they have machine guns too.
also Scott. I'm not sure.
Holy
Scott,
water.
I'm not sure you guys are aware how large these walls are. It's not a simple ladder
supposed
job.
to
It's
be
only
30
30 feet
feet.
high.
Yeah, I'm not talking about the one that they're proposing here. Like, for
Maybe
example,
I
what's
should
Israel's?
maybe I should try and get friggin'
That's-
Roger Waters on the show, and he can talk
How
about
high
That guy
the
is
wall.
nuts,
You know
huh?
what I'm saying?
That
How
guy's a
high
nut
is the
job.
one in Israel?
I think it's higher than that. I've seen it. It looked enormous. But
Really?
maybe I'm a small person. I don't know.
My name is Steve
check
Appel.
the
You're
height.
listening to Work Comp Matters. We're brought to you by A1 Law Santa Monica Tickets and WorkCompCentral.com. Speaking of WorkCompCentral.com, Robert, I want you to read the second news story, and I hope it's the one that I want to hear. Second news story from WorkCompCentral.com. Give me the date.
It's really the
and
third.
Okay, the third.
Are you talking about the San Francisco Examiner?
Negative.
Yes.
I'm talking about the stripper.
Yes, that's the.
Oh, go for it. Hey, it's a Work Comp Central story. Go for it.
Okay. The San Francisco Examiner reports that strippers are not happy being classified as employees per the 2018 California Supreme Court decision in Dynamex. Apparently, a wave of panic swept through the penthouse clubs in San Francisco when strippers received their first employee paychecks last year in November.
All right, now hold on just a second. Firstly, what's the date and what's the official title of the story?
Strippers don't like employee classification.
And is there a date on it or not?
January 3rd.
Okay. Got to ask you this. Have you ever represented a stripper?
No, but it's funny you say this.
Strippers file work comp claims,
I've heard about it.
and traditionally they're denied because they're independent contractor status. And then, of course, any applicant attorney worth his salt takes it to trial and gets a finding of she is employed. Go ahead.
Well, the facts seem to be pretty clear, at least the factor test in Dynamex and Borello, as the other cases you're aware of.
Right. Now, what's interesting in this story is that you have the person providing the services who doesn't like being classified as an employee. And please continue reading and you find out why.
Not a single dancer made more than $300 for 2 weeks of work, according to a dancer calling herself Darla. The club pays dancers minimum wage, which is $15 an hour, and Darla said being classified as an employee destroys the primary benefit of stripping, which is essentially untraceable income. The whole point about being a stripper is you go in and get fast cash, no one knows how you're getting it. It's not documented, and if it's not taken from you, according to Darla.
And we're talking about up to 4 figures cash a night, and you'll see. Please continue.
Another stripper using the name Maria said dancers historically kept 75% of their private dance sales. On a typical night, a dancer gets $1,000 and walks out the door with $750.
$750 cash a night, and now they're down to $300 every 2 weeks.
$750 tax free.
Yeah, cash in pocket.
Just want to say, if you get your law degree, that's less than 2 hours of your deposition time drinking coffee. Okay?
That's
And you
right,
don't- and you don't-
exactly.
And you don't need to strip for anybody.
Yeah, hurry up and wait.
That's travel time to a depot. And from.
Yeah, Mike, what's the next Work Comp Matters
Did you
story?
finish that one?
Oh, did you finish?
Well, thank you for asking. Yes. We'll consider this one concluded.
Well, see, last time I asked, you said it was done, so I figured this time memory was serving me pretty good. Go ahead.
Actually, no, there was more then.
Oh.
I always want to be nice. You are blindfolded. I'm giving you a break here.
Thank you for being nice, my son.
He's been bird boxing this whole show here, so
Yes.
it's impressive. You
With
know,
a stylish blindfold.
this last one it read like you wrote it, the blindfold on. So
Oh, sorry about
so that one was a tougher one.
But I will tell you one thing. I think the blindfold is keeping my uhs and to a minimum. I've hardly done that at all.
Your other senses are sharpened.
That's exactly correct.
You're like a superhero.
What can I tell you?
Well, we don't have any more Work Comp Central stories, but we have an important one on the teacher strike.
I'm sorry. I meant Work Comp Matter stories.
Oh,
My
okay,
mistake.
okay.
Sorry.
We've got the looming LAUSD teacher strike. The United Teachers Los Angeles Union announced Wednesday that the start date for a potential teacher strike has been postponed to January 14. The initial date for the possible strike was supposed to be Thursday, January 10. UTLA said the reason for pushing the date to next Monday is to, quote, provide clarity and to allow members, parents, and our communities to plan, end quote. The announcement comes as Los Angeles Unified School District officials and the UTLA reps appeared in court Wednesday over the union's right to strike. The two sides are set to hold 11th hour talks later in the day in an effort to stave off a massive teachers' strike. And have we had any updates on that?
No, that was the most recent update. I sure hope that they resolve the strike. Teachers are underpaid and clearly one of the most important professionals in our society. I mean, they help shape the value of our young. What could be more important than that?
Yeah, but you know what? I mean,
LAUSD is grossly mismanaged.
That's true.
Okay, it's been that way for quite some
But
time.
that's not the quality of teaching. So you're saying the money
goes
is there,
into it.
The money
It
is there
affects
to
it.
pay them more, but the money's, as Mike would say, is some phony baloney going on.
Well, any bureaucracy that large, it's going to happen. But I mean, for example, what they're arguing for, I heard one union member talking today, and she's talking primarily about health care. And as far as I know, there's not going to be any draconian cuts in their health care, and their health care is pretty darn good. As I understand it, I may be wrong, but I don't think so. So I wonder what they're bellyaching about on that issue anyway.
Well, those are some very good points. Robert, why don't you go ahead and take the next Work Comp Matters news story? Or a Work Comp Matters news story.
All right, well, we'll go back to President Trump. President Trump again threatens FEMA wildfire relief. President Donald Trump once again threatened Wednesday to cut off FEMA wildfire relief to California because of California's, quote, disgraceful mismanagement.
And we've
close quote.
discussed this. Isn't it the Fed's responsibility to take care of federal forests? Is it California's responsibility?
There's a lot of state property out there, I think. We have to get a map and check out who's got what responsibility. But looking from Trump's tweets and the fact no one's called him out on it for quite some time, I would assume he's correct in the sense that the California government is the one that's, the state is the one that's supposed to be in charge of this.
Well, like I said, I don't believe a word out of his mouth until I verify it. But that's just me.
Usually he's got 10 people jumping to kick it right back into his mouth. So
yeah, right.
if he's not right, I would assume that we would have heard about it by now, right? But maybe it's true.
Yeah, go ahead, Mike. Read the next one.
The
Who knows?
board overseeing the nation's largest public pension fund will get at least 3 new faces in 2019.
CalPERS.
Marking unusual turnover at the California Public Employees Retirement System. 2 of the newcomers were decided in recent elections. Governor Jerry Brown this week created a third vacancy, when he removed CalPERS board member Richard Costigan from the pension fund.
You know, if you take a poll of anybody in municipal, city government, or state government, the most amount of money that is managed is that from the retirement and the pension funds.
Oh, it's huge.
And it's because people are living longer, so when they offered the pensions, they didn't expect them to be around for so long.
They have
to
all kinds of
them.
unfunded pension liability, as I understand it, but the district also has supposedly $1.2 billion. They just don't want to spend it. That's as I understand.
Mm-hmm.
I got an interesting news story for you here next, boss.
Before you do, let me throw this out to the table. Do you think that governments who promise pensions to those that worked for 20, 25, 30 years should be allowed to break those agreements unilaterally? I say no. I say if you were a municipality, if you were state government, and you made an agreement, you made a deal, you keep your end of the bargain. What do you guys think?
Depends if there is some sort of insurance available, some sort of other entity which you can draw upon. If it's totally unfunded and unsecured,
Not totally unfunded.
Well, then you go bankrupt.
well, let's say that's totally unsecured. Let's change that. So
Okay.
there's nothing out there except for your word and the potential for you to earn more and pay it back. Then no, of course not. They have to continue to work to pay it back. You have to pay less to your current employees. You have to be on slim margins, and you got to pay it. That said, there should be policy in place moving forward to prevent such underfunded, unsecured liabilities. We need to make sure that doesn't happen again, because you can see the issue that arises. You have to be able to allocate a certain amount of money towards something that you want to pay for. It's not unreasonable for you to have the money, or at least a plan to get it, before you spend
I
it.
think most school districts in the United States are in this shape. It's not unusual. And if you passed a statute, it'd be like a legislative veto saying you're not going to pass this funding bill unless you balance the books. It's not going to work. They tried that before.
Well, they've been trying to break up the LAUSD for years, ever since I've been alive. They've
Really?
never. Yeah,
They should. Well,
the LAUSD is bigger than any other school district in the United
But
States.
they've been trying to break up the union?
No, break up the district.
Oh,
let me ask
okay.
you this: private schools don't have this problem, do they?
Well, of course not.
Right? Private schools have to balance a budget, right, every year.
Right.
And if you're in the red for a year, that means you got to let someone go. You can't just you can't pay the money you don't have. Correct?
Correct.
Okay, but we do pay people money we don't have when it comes to public entities,
That's true.
right? Now, when we promise to pay more forever, without ever knowing how we're going to pay for it.
Well, the whole bond system is like that.
But at least bonds are secured debt that you're supposed to
Not
reinvest.
PG&E's bonds.
Yeah. Well, that's the risk, right? Bonds for such a low interest rates are supposed to have low risk, and obviously it's not worth it to invest in bonds if it's just as risky as the market.
It
Well, in
depends
a
on the
well-balanced-
bonds you invest.
A
course.
well-balanced.
Yeah, and municipal bonds should be much more secure, correct? In the idea of the
Well, they're also tax-free.
Well, there are. I was going to say there are certain government bonds that are double tax free. They're both Fed and state tax free. I don't know which ones they are.
and they're secured by the municipality, right? By the government
And they
itself.
add
As
valorem
long
tax
as it doesn't
capability.
go bankrupt, right?
And the question is, should they be allowed to go bankrupt when
What are
they
you gonna do?
overpromise?
No.
What are you gonna do?
The
I think-
the question wasn't should they be allowed to go bankrupt. The question is should they be allowed to unilaterally break their agreement for pensions.
Well, that's going bankrupt, isn't it?
That's
Isn't it
true.
one and the same?
The other side is, that's true. You go BK.
You were going to read the next news story.
All right. Well, not going bankrupt anytime soon, but this one's going to hurt. Amazon CEO Jeff Bezos, 54, and wife Mackenzie, 48, have announced their divorce after 25 years of marriage.
$138 billion.
They have 4 children. The Bezos fortune is estimated in the article at 137, depending on the price of the stock today, which is up.
And they were married in Washington, is that correct? Which is
The
more
physical
liberal.
location actually was in New York City.
Oh, they were married
But
in New
they
York City.
Yeah, but they resided early on in the state
the
of Washington.
state they're married in controls.
Well, I'm sure he's been incorporated for quite some time. That
No,
he's been
no,
drawing
no,
a
no.
standard salary,
No.
and everything else is
she
going to be
owns-
separate.
She's getting half of that, Robert. I'm sorry.
I don't think so.
Oh, I guarantee you.
I-
now, whether
I doubt it.
Okay, whether or not she's getting half. Now, whether or not she gets it cash all up front, which I doubt, because I doubt they have that much cash.
Voting,
all up front.
non-voting shares.
Voting or non-voting shares of stocks, other assets. Robert, she's getting half the
she's gonna
value
get a
of
lot,
that company.
and she's going to get probably. Well, it depends. I don't know if there's a prenup. I don't know.
There is no prenup.
And remember,
there
Really?
is no prenup.
Really?
I
Okay,
heard that today.
even if there isn't, if there's a corporate entity and he takes a standard salary, it's separate from the corporate growth.
and she owns half the corporation.
Well, does she?
I think so.
Yes, in the
And-
community property state, assuming
Remember,
No,
she,
well, no,
Robert,
no, no,
she
no. In
owns
corporate-
half. Robert, she owns half of whatever he.
You guys are
owns.
incorrect. The corporation is an entity unto itself. There is a one owner, perhaps, or 2 owners, or in fact, in this corporation, since it's a publicly traded company, there are
My
many
understanding
owners. Okay?
is she's been with him since they were operating the company out of a
25 years.
friggin' garage.
25 years. That's before.
If he draws a salary, you could
So
make
what?
you can make a distinct. There's a distinction between what is the growth of a company outside of your extra effort.
It's still a community property.
Your salary is the community asset.
I
The
disagree.
company itself is separate.
Robert, she's walking away with $1 million.
We should get that divorce attorney back on here. I
Raymond
did pass
Heckman.
community property class in college. I mean, in law school. I was pretty good
This
at
is
it.
family law. She's walking away with
It's community property
She's
law.
walking
It's
away
community
with
property
a
law. It's
It's
minimum.
community property law.
Yeah, community
no,
property
it's
law.
family law.
It's
Well,
both.
Okay,
community property, you can say, is a subset of family law.
you agreed.
Okay,
Agreed.
But in
It's its own separate topic in
either
law
way,
school.
there is separation, what I'm telling you, between the corporate entity and an individual when that guy gets
know
paid from
that.
the corporation. So, for example,
I disagree. The increased valuation is a community property asset.
it's going to depend if somebody puts above and beyond effort more than like a standard 40-hour work week, then he's getting paid from the company. That's not like
disagree.
$1 a day type of deal.
It's still appreciation within the asset.
That's it. It's a separate asset. It's separate property.
No, it isn't.
See, that's the question, if it's community or separate property. I believe it's separate
I
property.
bet my left nut.
I don't know. We'll see about this. Well, I mean,
Robert-
obviously we'll hear about it, but I believe this to be separate property, a separate corporation.
She's walking away with a minimum of $60 billion in money, assets, property,
It
the
depends.
whole ball of wax.
I'm going to say it depends. I know it's a lawyer answer.
Well,
but,
everything depends.
No, that's
it-
perfectly
But I
okay.
see it as separate property. But if Amazon Inc. was really Jeff Bezos, DBA Amazon Inc., an individual, then yes, of course, it's 50-50 right away.
There's no way it's separate
But if
property.
it's separate, as in a corporate was in it, I don't
No
know.
way.
We'll see.
My name is Steve Appel. You're listening to Work Comp Matters. This is the Bird Box Show. I've been blindfolded for the entire show and will be blindfolded till the end of the show. We're brought to you by A1 Law, Santa Monica Tickets, and, of course, WorkCompCentral.com. Scott, what's our running time right now? Did he say 55? 50, I can't drive 55. All right, we got a few more minutes. Mike, let's do
Yeah.
one more good Work Comp Matters news story.
Yeah, this is interesting. The bond rating of Pacific Gas and Electric has been downgraded to junk status, and its stock value has dropped 28% in the last few days. Governor Newsom is said to be active in discussions to prevent the utility's insolvency. The financial problems are the result of potential liability following the wildfires in Northern California this year. And I thought, guys, that Gary Brown had arranged
Jerry
for,
Brown, go ahead.
he had something passed
For a bailout.
Well, not for a bailout, but just to some immunity on liability.
Well, here and here is
I
the
think he's
latest.
going to cap it. Or some
Here
sort.
is the
Cap it.
latest. Of course, PG&E's insurers have their own reinsurers. Apparently, the
Lloyd's of London
reinsurers,
time.
the reinsurers are denying liability because PG&E. They're arguing PG&E is at fault, and therefore they don't have to pay off any of the reinsurance.
Depends on their policy. But obviously, that's not something you admit, no matter which side you're on. That's something that goes to the
usually you're covered for your own negligence, okay? Usually, but it's when it becomes
No. You
hold on,
mean
when it
you're not
becomes
covered. You're
when
not
it
covered.
Yes, you are. And then it's only when it becomes intentional that you lose the coverage. Negligence happens all the time. That's what an auto policy is. You're being insured for your negligence.
Mike's right. I mean, this is what you get insurance for. It's for your liability insurance, right? That's what
Yes.
they call it.
Yes.
Right? I think you're thinking about collision coverage, boss, there. If it, you
But
know,
if they're
that's
denying
different.
coverage, if
My
they're
mistake. I admit when I'm wrong.
yeah,
Please
but you know,
continue.
Steve, it's interesting. If Lloyd's of London, if the reinsurers are doing this, I'd love to hear what their reasoning is. They'd have to more or less say that
it was foreseeable that this would happen if PG&E did not upgrade their equipment.
probably
a sudden unexpected event is the standard.
There's probably some sort of clause there where if it's your gross negligence due to the fact that you
Gross.
some sort of clause there
Turn
saying
your
you-
mind from the danger.
Correct. Yeah,
See-
you knowingly disregard it and you let it happen on purpose or nearly or it's reckless. It's beyond negligent. It's reckless.
It's a pretty
right?
tall burden.
So just to recap, we've got PG&E saying we're being sued. You need to insure us. You've got the insurance companies claiming the claim on their reinsurance. The reinsurance then would have to refute the burden by presumably going into PG&E's records and saying, look, you guys were on notice on this date at this time this year. you were constantly reminded to clear away brush and update your electrical connections, and you failed to do so. And therefore, because it was foreseeable and because you acted negligently, we do not have to cover the reinsurance.
But
Robert,
Robert,
do I have it in a manner of speaking?
Are you saying
right?
the burden's on the other party?
No, the burden's on. Let's say PG&E is insured by, I don't know, ACE or 123 Insurance. Make it easier, not an actual
I
company.
like 123 Insurance.
123, okay. 123's got reassurance after a certain limit with Lloyd's, right? Yep. Now, Lloyd's policy with 123 and based on PG&E's conduct there underlying it all is that they have to have basic negligence. They'll cover that. But if it's some sort of recklessness or beyond it, they won't. Now, the moving party will be 123 saying, hey, we want to get money back from Lloyd's. Lloyd's is going to send a denial letter. Just like you send one for workers' comp and you get a denial letter, or, maybe they send you an NPN notice if you get lucky and you want to go to the network. But
if you get lucky.
Right, if they admit your claim, at least one body part. But and then you have to explain to the doctor why it's just a foot and don't look at his back. That said, they could just deny the claim for any reason, and for billions of dollars, trust me, they'll find one. Okay. After that, it's on the PG&E's insurance, 123 insurance company, we're calling it, to file a lawsuit or probably some sort of binding arbitration. You got to check the clauses in those contracts, but it's going to be there. And before that, there's going to be a reasonable discovery period where the allegations that 123 are making and Lloyd's are defending against will be, discoverable and then formally adjudicated, probably settled.
That is beautiful, and we have come to the end. From Donald Trump to Gavin Newsom to strippers to PG&E. My name is Steve Appel. You've been listening to Work Comp Matters from my right-hand man, Dr. Michael Zima, from my protege, attorney Robert Ozeron, for Scott Walton of Uncle Studios, for John Scalia in Munich, Germany, and all the good people, including all the good people back at Work Comp Central, including but not limited to Christian Chavez. Thank you very much for renewing the contract and supporting Work Comp Matters once again. We're brought to you by A1 Law Santa Monica Tickets and WorkCompCentral.com. And if you like us, please subscribe. And if you don't like us, tell a friend. And if you like us also, please call Work Comp Central. Send them an email. Say you want more Work Comp Matters. My name is Steve Appel. We'll see you again next week.